This movie started out to help a friend who couldn't get her row counter seated properly on her Suitcase Superba. These machines go by quite a few names. Mine is a Heimstricker Singer, but some actually are badged Superba and some other things. They're popular restoration projects because they're true double bed machines that are very simple and very, very sturdy, so they actually have lasted down to this day usefully. Since it's necessary to remove the cover and get into the carriage to attach and mount the bracket for the counter properly, the movie expanded. So now it's a look at getting inside to clean and adjust and also secure the row counter.
We were talking about the row counter that is mounted to the carriage on this machine. Now it's obvious that these two black slot-headed screws hold the row counter to this base plate. I don't think that's what we're after. What we want is how this base plate is connected inside the carriage.
That's what the other people with Suitcase Superbas are struggling with.
Right. So what we're going to do is take the cover off and explore. And it looks to me as if to get the cover off, this white cover for this piece is over the top of it. So we're going to take these two flat slot screws out and get this cover off, and then we'll see what happens.
There are the screws that we just released. They're really big.
We've taken those two screws out, and there's our white cover right off.
There are 6 screws that need to be removed to get the plastic cover off. 3 along one edge of the carriage and 3 along the other edge. They're all just alike, so they can be kept together. Next, the stitch dial knob must come off. There's 1 screw in the side of the dial. The knob then lifts off, but the stitch scale remains. The cover's now loose.
Alright, now this is tricky because this button is not attached to anything on the inside. So you pull it out, you've got to come over this post, and you got to come over these. And at the same time slide up in the back, because we're going to go around this support.
Now, some people may have received theirs with the bracket not in position, so they won't have to slide around that support, but they will have to install it.
Now here's the order of events. If we push this button down, which is spring-loaded, the rest of them lock. If we push this down, it gives the cover a little bit of room. It also holds this button out. Here's the sequence of events. We pull this button out, rotate the machine so that gravity holds the button down, press this button, and that will hold the yellow button, supposed to be white, out. We clear this post first. That gives us a little bit of room to wiggle. Now we very carefully wiggle, come up there. And that's how you get that cover off.
And now we're free.
You see your button fell out, so for reassembly, the button has to be put in from this side. And this is why we hold the button, because it stops right there. You see the slot in the button works this tang right here. So when you push the button in to release, that's what it does. So now we're going to look at what we've got here.
And that's the mounting bracket for the row counter.
Yes. All right, I'm going to stick it back in. There's a little bit of pressure from a spring-loaded plate right there. We don't want it off of its spring. And you'll notice there's 2 stop stobs right there. They're depressions, so that when you...
They fit right into 2 openings,
right.
Don't they?
Yes.
And this is, if your bracket came not on the machine, and a friend of mine said she couldn't get hers to sit in there securely, this is probably why. It's not just a slide in.
Right. Now, what we did was loosen these 2 screws to give our plate, you can see they're just finger loose, to give our plate a little bit of rise so that we can get that out. But you can hear it when it pops into
It's a
place.
positive position.
Yeah, listen. It locks in. Now the screw that we took out is not just the screw, but there is a conical lock washer, not something you're going to see very often, that goes right up onto the beveled head of the screw. And in it goes, and of course we
And
always...
you know what I'm wondering? If somebody were missing that hardware, what would they do? What?
Well, you can get a bevel-headed slot screw to go in there, and I would just put a drop of Loctite on the threads, because you're not going to find that conical lock washer more than likely.
But then you think they probably can match the thread pitch on the screw?
Oh, yeah, I would think so. But now we're going to snug these back up.
And just to repeat, you had to loosen the back screws, though they are not holding down the bracket, in order to get enough freedom of movement.
Right. These 3 screws, those 2 and this one, hold this plate into position. So in order to get the plate...
And this plate
right.
is held by that plate, and in turn it will hold the row counter.
That's right. But you see, you're not going to get these dimples out of their holes without just a little bit of play. It just won't work.
Right.
So this screw's got to come out, so you just loosen those. And when you put these back, the reason for that conical lock washer is so that all you have to do is snug it. It doesn't take a lot of torque, and they'll stay put no matter how much vibration they
Well,
get.
and that row counter clicking and clicking thousands of times, that is actually a good bit of stress over time.
I'm pretty sure that's why there's this spring-loaded plate underneath it. See how it floats on that plate? So it's got a little bit of protection for the row counter as it gets pushed constantly.
Mine works great, so it must be a good system. Well, we are in this far. It's a fantastic opportunity to do a little cleaning and lubing. I did clean this Carriage when I first got it, but we did not take it this far apart. And it's pretty impressively nice in terms of condition of the metal and cleanliness for a machine of its age.
I feel the same way.
Well, when I say I cleaned it, obviously I couldn't get in here, and I didn't do that because everything was functioning when I cleaned it from there, where you could see.
And the only thing that I'm seeing from the underside is these slides, you can't always get to them as easily as you can now in this center position.
Yep. Well, I have generously kept on cleaning and oiling what I could see, because when I first got it, it worked in that way that machines that haven't been used in a long time tend to do. Really annoying when you're in the middle of knitting. So it's had a lot of, every time I think about it, I go by and give it a little bit of attention.
Well, the LPS1 is really good for this metal on the inside because it's a moisture replacer. And it'll force the moisture away from the metal. And in the little bit of humidity that we have in Georgia.
We live in the humidity capital of the universe, I think, so that's a good plan. Jack's doing a little bit of cleaning and polishing while we're on the inside. Have a look at this, knitting friends. One reason these carriages hold up for so long is this construction. The plastic is not what's holding the screws. There are brass receivers embedded in them, into the plastic in the screw positions. Go ahead.
All right, let me show you what we're doing here, if the camera can see. See how our little white button is striking that top?
Yes.
All right, so what happens is, without depressing that, this doesn't go down far enough on that shaft to get out of the way. Now look at that. Was that
Now,
easy?
what did you depress? The
This button.
kind of navy blue one.
Yeah, the first button from the operator side of the machine, and it's spring-loaded, but it lets us get far enough down to get past this curved area.
It popped right
So
back in.
the plate just popped right back in. Now, as far as our knob, we got to make sure that this guy's positioned properly.
That's right. We've got to get it oriented the same way.
So 12 is, and I'll show you how to, let me get my screwdriver.
That's the biggest stitch size, by the way.
And what we do is we can rotate this. Boy, there's some more cleaning to do. I'm going to slip the cover back off and then I'll show you what we're looking at. All right, here's what we've got. There's the rider, and there's the spiraled path that it takes through the cam. You can see that. And that's what moves this rider in and out, is trying to follow this interior spiral. So what we want to do is go around to the last position, and here's your lock spring here. And notice if we go any further, there's a little more we can go on the spiral, but there's not a spot for that lock spring to go into. So that right there is our last position.
So that's stitch
next
size
position, yeah.
12 or stitch size 1?
12.
And in 12, what's happening on the underside of the carriage is that the needle path is at its maximum length, and that's what makes bigger stitches.
Yeah. All right, here's the cam here that is moving.
You're adjusting stitch size.
As I'm adjusting the stitch size, and you'll notice if the needle butts were coming by, this is where they would be pressing over to. So when this guy's all the way around to there, that's the least amount of travel that it has when the needle butt comes through, right there. All right, we've set our stitch size all the way to 12, so where the little red button is, 12 should be lined up with it. Now it's pretty obvious where this goes because there's a slot, I will use the screwdriver, right here that the set screw goes into. And look, here's the little plastic tang that goes into the little square to hold this dial matched to the interior workings. And I noticed to begin with that the set screw was right opposite the 5 when we were on the right stitch size marked for 12.
Well, it's a way to double check then.
Right. Oh boy, we're cooking with wood and hot Crisco. That needs to be pretty snug.
So that is a place, a couple of people have told me they had very stiff stitch dials. You could go in and clean and lube that area where we were just working.
Yes, and since this metal dial rotates, when I took it off the first time with the camera running, I grabbed my rag and said, ooh, a place to clean. That's true. We want to spray a little bit of silicone under this dial. Right now we've got LPS 1 under there, but you want a little bit of lubrication because that metal dial spins in this plastic cover and you would never want it to abrade.
Right.
All right, we're going to put the row counter back on and it's working. Yes, it clicks. So which way does it go on? It could go on this way, it could go on, but if we put it on like so, it's pretty obvious that when we're operating it, we can watch the numbers.
Yes, the numbers need to be right side up.
Right side up and not backwards. And then, of course, it's pretty simple because you've got 2 screw holes and 2 drilled holes, and so that's what we match up.
The bracket is secure, so screw the row counter to it. Now just replace the 6 screws that hold on the plastic cover, and you're done. Okay, back to work we go.